and girls, and thanks for joining me today for today's storytelling time. Now today is Monday the 25th of January, and we know it's Rabbie Burns Day because we've been learning lots about Rabbie Burns at school. He was a famous Scottish poet. And tonight for dinner we might be having haggis, neeps and tatties to celebrate Burns Day. That's what I'm having and I'm really looking forward to it. And that's the reason why I decided to choose this story today, and it's called Hamish the Hairy Haggis. And this story is written by A.K. Patterson and is illustrated by Stuart Martin. Now we know that the author is the person who writes a story and the illustrator is the person who draws all the wonderful pictures in our stories. So let's get comfy. Sit back, relax and get your listening ears ready to enjoy the story of Hamish the Hairy Haggis. It's Hogmanay and everyone in Scotland is very happy. Everyone, that is, apart from Hamish the Hairy Haggis. Hamish the Hairy Haggis lives on a steep hill in the Highlands of Scotland. The dawn of a new year means a big noisy party for nearly all the Scots. For Hamish, Hogmanay is the start of many days keeping his head down, hiding in a deep dark hole. Hogmanay marks the start of the haggis bashing season. Hamish has been in the hole for ages. He has long finished eating all his thistle sandwiches. Hamish is on the last page of his one and only book. He's very bored and very hungry and wants to go out to play. The hairish haggis bashers are usually very noisy, so Hamish listens hard at the opening of the hole. It seems to be quiet outside. Maybe the haggis bashers have gone home for the day, thinks Hamish. He decides to leave the hole in search of more thistles to make sandwiches. Big mistake. As Hamish sticks his head through the hole, a great hammer hits him very hard on the head. The hairy haggis basher has been hiding in the heather. Hamish is in big trouble now. The haggis basher carries Hamish down the hill and heads for his hometown of Inverhaggis. Hamish wakes up and finds himself in a cage. Beside him in the cage are some very smelly turnips called neeps and some very dirty old potatoes known as tatties. Hamish is a bit groggy but climbs over a neep to peep through the bars of the cage. What he sees in the vast room behind makes him tremble with fear. This must be the ancient ceremony that his grandfather Harry, the even hairier haggis, once told him about. The Burns Supper. In the big room, hairy haggis bashers and mashers are dancing together. The mashers wear long, colourful skirts, and the bashers wear short, colourful skirts. To his horror, Hamish sees that one of the bashers is wearing his grandfather Harry tied around his middle. Hamish's grandfather was the great chieftain of the pudding race. Rabbie Burns, it seems, was the really big chief of all the hairy haggis bashers and mashers. He was the most feared enemy of haggis everywhere. Hamish knows he must escape from the cage. He tries to think of a plan. Then from the vast hall comes a cry, "Bring in the haggis! Bring in the haggis! Bring in the haggis!" Hamish begins to shake even more when he hears these words. On the day of his 5th birthday, his grandfather, Harry the hairier haggis and the great chieftain of the pudding race, told him all about the haggis bashers and their very odd ways. Harry told Hamish that if he ever heard the words Rabbi Burns, he should run for his life. The screeching music stops and the bashers and mashers sit down at long tables. The chief haggis basher stands up and starts to shout loudly in a language that Hamish does not understand. After a very long time, the big chief raises his glass and everyone begins chanting, Rabbi Burns, Rabbi Burns, Rabbi Burns. Hamish sees one of the hairy haggis bashers pick up what looks like a baby haggis basher. He blows in one of its spindly legs, and from the baby haggis basher comes a horrible, high-pitched howling. The terrible noise makes Hamish and the tatties cover their ears. Luckily for the neeps, they don't have ears, so can't hear the awful wailing. Hamish remembers something else his grandfather Harry told him. When you hear the horrible howling, leg it. Leg it, leg it, thinks Hamish as he kicks a neep with all his strength. The neep hurtles towards the bar. It smashes a hole in the side of the cage and Hamish jumps through. Hamish makes his escape. Hamish runs for his life through an open door. The bashers and mashers chase after him. Meanwhile, the smelly neeps and the dirty old tatties also escape through the hole in the cage. The bashers and mashers trip over the neeps and tatties. They end up in a tangled and colourful heap. Hamish is nearly caught by one of the bashers, but luckily Harry, Hamish's grandfather, springs to life, wraps his legs around the basher's ankles and trips him up. Hamish heads for the hills. The bashers are close behind and nearly catch him. Hairy haggis have two very long back legs and two very short front legs, which mean they can run very fast up hills. As soon as Hamish sets foot on the hill, he knows he will be safe. Hamish is nearly at the very top of the hill while the bashers are still at the bottom. They are out of breath and very, very angry. Hamish sends a traditional haggis greeting to the bashers. A few hours later, the hairy haggis bashers and mashers have given up the hunt for Hamish. In the kitchen of the big hall, they mix together some very strange ingredients in a huge bowl. Later, they sit down and try to pretend to their guests that this gooey mess is real haggis. Hamish warms up some thistle soup. He doesn't have the appetite for the basher stew. He is very happy knowing that he is safe from the hairy haggis bashers until next year. So, now you know the true story of Hamish the hairy haggis. Well done, boys and girls. Wasn't that a brilliant story? Well, I hope you join me next week for another wonderful story time. Enjoy your haggis, neeps and tatties tonight if you're having some. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.